Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today News, and welcome to our November Microsoft Teams news update. Today I'm joined by Microsoft Teams expert and co-founder of Empowering.Cloud, Tom Arbuthnot, and our esteemed panel of expert guests. And together we're going to be talking through the most popular Teams headlines and hottest topics from the past few weeks. So welcome, Tom. How's it going?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah, it's we're just a few weeks out from Ignite, or even a couple of weeks out from Ignite. So normally it would be super quiet, right? No releases, no news. But actually, we've had 2 general availability releases and a bunch of news even before Ignite. So plenty to talk about, and there'll be even more after Ignite, I think.
Yeah, so stay tuned, everyone. Lots to talk about, and we've got a huge panel on today. 9 guests or 8 guests plus me and Tom. So lots to talk about and lots to discuss. And I've also been trialing the early access Copilot over the last kind of week or 2 as well, which has been quite interesting. Tom, have you been playing with Copilot?
Yeah, I haven't got it directly yet, and we'll talk about that when we come to it, about what enterprise GA means. But I've got a couple of customers that are on the early access, so I've had a bit of a look. I know Amanda's had a bit of a look as well, so we'll definitely dive into that.
Superb, yeah, really hot topic right now. But anyways, let's kick on. Tom, first thing we said we'd talk about was the Microsoft Q1 results. What do you think?
Yeah, so we just recently had the Q1 results. So obviously the overall tone of that was all about AI. Unsurprisingly, Microsoft are doing a really good job of positioning themselves as the AI company. You know, everything has AI in it. They've renamed the partner program AI. Obviously, the Copilot stuff is rolling really well. But we did still get some Microsoft Teams specific announcements. So we got a new monthly active user number. So it's now 320 million monthly active users. So even getting above 300, that's still growing at a fairly healthy clip, which is exciting. Microsoft Teams Premium is now used by 10,000 customers. So Kevin and I had a debate on this on another podcast about, is it one user each of those 10,000 customers, or is it 10,000 customers with 10,000 user each? I mean, Microsoft usually take the big number, so I would guess that is pockets of users, but still really impressive. Technically, that's one of the fastest growing products because it's grown so quickly in so many customers. And we saw that they announced Microsoft Teams revenue had grown triple digits for 9 consecutive quarters. So real sustained growth in that Teams Room business as well.
And I suppose, what do we think? Is it going to slow? Are we going to see these numbers start to kind of get a little bit harder to achieve, going forward? I mean, it's just not showing any signs of slowing so far.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch which numbers Microsoft pick out, because they'll always pick out the numbers differently. So it's not like we get this perfect month-to-month comparison. But I mean, logically, 320 million monthly active users, Teams is starting to slow because we're coming close to that total Microsoft 365 users / the use cases for it. But that's why Microsoft are pushing things like frontline worker, first-line worker so hard, because that's a whole new opportunity for them. The Teams Premium should continue to grow. We didn't get any new numbers for Teams Phone, but that has huge potential upside. I mean, that's about 17 million active users now. So there's still a massive already licensed estate of users that aren't yet using Teams Phone, not to mention the ones that could be upsold to it as well. So I think Microsoft are just pushing hard on the add-ons and the utilization. Rooms has a long way to go as well to get up to those, hundreds of millions of users still.
Great stuff. Well, next up, we said we'd talk about the general availability of the new Microsoft Teams app. I know a lot of people have been playing with this recently. There's a lot of chatter on social. What do we think?
Yeah, so Microsoft announced kind of pre-Ignite. So traditionally you would have held these announcements for Ignite, but it's just rolling on its own timeline. That is the cloud. Generally some good performance improvements here, but Microsoft have changed some behaviors as well. They've depreciated certain features. Certain features aren't quite there yet. So I'd say it's generally a big improvement, particularly if you're working in multi-tenant. But be aware, it's not exactly a one-to-one replacement. And you're going to have to do some education with your users to say, well, this button's moved slightly, this behavior's moved slightly. And I think Microsoft sometimes underestimate how big an impact little changes can make on user experience as well. Don't know if anybody on the panels, got any thoughts?
Yeah, I've been using it for a while as a Mac user, obviously, and it's such an improvement, especially as Tom says with the multi-tenant switching. We have lots of different tenants with Microsoft, etc., and being able to get notifications on either tenant is really, productive rather than having to open, 12 browsers with different tabs, etc. So it's a much improvement, but as Tom says, it's not all there yet. So, I wouldn't recommend it, I don't think, to roll out to your users. Give it to, more to your expert users to start with. Get used to it, and obviously adopt your training guides as and when.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think that this was like a re-architecture that Microsoft had to do to just build out a new platform to keep them, stable in terms of adding features that they want to pile on, specifically like some of the Copilot stuff and integrate. So, yes, it's faster. The tenant switching, absolutely. But I think, the truth is they've added a bunch of features that actually got added to the classic, versus the new teams as well. So a bunch of things that they announce as being part of the new teams. It's actually, if you run, like I have two machines, one I run the old, one I run the new, specifically because Tom and I did this tips and tricks talking about the new teams. And it turned out that a lot of the things you want to talk about saying, hey, this is great in the new teams. Well, the truth is it's also available on the old team. So I think of this as more of a re-architecture play that will, in the long term, be good for end users. But I think a lot of the things like the 50% faster and, I think they're trying to come up with things that are exciting for users. But I'm not sure that on balance, because they move things around, I think that regular users might be more frustrated in the short term than amazed or excited.
Wasn't the 50% faster due to lacking lots of functionality in the beginning? I feel like,
that number did come out when the Teams client was very, very light. It didn't have all the other added ones.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Graham said, I do think it's kind of one of those kick the tires, test it out in controlled environments stages right now, just because there's, putting aside which features are still coming or still in development, I keep wanting to embrace it because I've been waiting for tenant switching for so long. That's the big deal for me. Out of everything, tenant switching. Every time I go into it, there are things that are basic functionality things that are broken experiences still. Not just, that feature's not here yet. Camera problems, things like that I probably should have taken a little more time to submit bugs on. Haven't done all that, but there's things like that still have to get worked through. It's early days to test it out, see how it's going to fit, see what your plan looks like as an IT org, but early days is key.
Yeah, you've got until the 31st of March is the current date when Microsoft are going to force everybody over. So you've got quite a long run. But, as people have said in this pod, it's time to start testing it out now, get it out to a group of users, see how it feels. And this is your opportunity to feed back to Microsoft if you are hitting bugs and edge cases, because you need them solved before the forced cutover, which is March 31st, 2024.
So I should start submitting those bugs.
That's what I'm saying, Josh. No pressure, but you are, everybody's relying on you.
It is worth it. And it makes it really clear for me that I've turned off every kinds of notifications in my normal tenant, but I have not in the other tenants. So I'm getting spammed from Microsoft, but it's so easy and smooth, and it makes everything worth it.
Yeah, if you're a multi-tenant customer or a consultant that lives in half a dozen customers, it's a huge improvement in that respect.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive into a little bit around Microsoft Copilot. Tom, we said we'd talk about the enterprise general availability of...
Yeah, enterprise being important and in quotes. So there's a lot of good stuff about Copilot, and I'm sure, Rob, you've had a go, Amanda, you've had a go. We can definitely talk about a lot of the positives, and there are many. And it seems like a lot of customers are jumping on the Copilot bandwagon. I've seen a bunch of customers order their licenses. One of the slight friction points is Microsoft have announced it as enterprise generally available, and that means that you have to be commercially direct with Microsoft, so you have to have a big agreement with them commercially, and you have to buy a minimum of 300 seats to get in the game. So there's been lots of marketing and lots of fanfare, but then anybody that's not in that camp has kind of said, Copilot is GA, generally available has always meant available to all now generally, right? But it's enterprise general availability. So really it's enterprise availability. They could have taken the general out. Microsoft are doing everything from a kind of positive point of view in terms of they want to manage the rollout, they want to make sure people have a good experience, but it has caused a bit of friction in the community around like, well, if you're enabling AI for everybody, then where's the non-enterprise route to this?
Interesting stuff. Amanda,
Rob, you've had a go, haven't you? I think what have you found so far?
Yeah, and I'm keen to hear Amanda's viewpoint on this, more of an expert, but from my point of view, we managed to get early access for so we've got a bunch of client licenses for Copilot across the whole 365 suite. Obviously, we've been using it in Teams more than any other application, I think. But I think we're trying to find the use cases, right? We're trying to find the little things that are just going to be made a little bit easier with Copilot. And I think certainly the meeting summaries and in meeting recaps are quite useful. So if you're kind of starting to nod off in a meeting and you're losing concentration, which, no one ever does, right? You can actually just do like an instant in-meeting recap, which I think is really cool. So you don't have to wait to the end to kind of get all that stuff. Drafting emails, brilliant. I'm one of these speed typers that, I type a little bit too fast and often make mistakes and press send before I've even checked it. And so having Copilot there is great. It's like a real it's like real-time Grammarly kind of solution, but on steroids, I suppose, that can help rewrite things completely. So very, 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 very useful so far. But again, just trying to find the things that are going to really bake in over the long term. So what about you, Amanda?
Yeah, for this scenario, I'm just like a happy, normal user. Somebody at my company said, hey, we have a few licenses. Do you want to try it? And I said, of course I do. And my first initial thought is that I don't know, I don't have that much data since most of my work I do at different clients. And so for me, it's not about harvesting all the big data sources I have at my company. It's more like, oh, can you summarize my week, or can you summarize this email, or can you draft a presentation from this document? And so far, I really like it. And with the license cost, it feels expensive, but if I could save 2 hours, it's worth it. So it's fun playing around with. And today I was going to do a live demo for a client, and it stopped working. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that the use cases bit is really important, and that's what I've seen. I get to work with a few different enterprise organizations, and they've all pretty much, everybody bar one I've worked to has put down there let's get 300 seats, let's get testing it, because this is clearly potentially impactful and we need to find the use cases. I think for enterprise IT, or for any IT for that matter, when you buy this, don't think you're done. This is kind of the beginning. You need to then make sure all your labeling and sensitivity and governance is all in place, so the right data gets to it. You need to train your users on how to make the most of it. This is not a technology that people will just, I think, on the main pick up and see immediate value. We'll have to sort of train them on, hey, what do you do in your job role? How can Copilot across PowerPoint, Outlook, Excel, Word, which pieces can help you drive the productivity out?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a new thing. So it's the art of prompting that everybody talks about. It's really crucial. And I don't know, maybe I have a really bad imagination, but I find it hard to come up with good things to ask for.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I think people focus on, these large language models, they do great for generating content. So that's pretty cool. If you have to generate something, and Microsoft shows a lot of examples, it's great at summarizing. I still think that also means that intelligent meeting recap with Teams Premium and Copilot, I still think they have to figure out how to rationalize these licenses, because Teams Premium still includes that eclectic mix of things. But, one of the best features is the intelligent meeting recap that arguably, if you buy Copilot, you could ask it to summarize your meetings. But the thing that I'm most excited for and gets talked about the least is really, Copilot knowing all the features that are available. So I think for the typical user, that not like this group who follows all the features, I think Microsoft said 570 new Teams features. And I think for a regular user, if you can use Copilot and say, hey, create a custom avatar for me, or create a custom background, or I want to send a survey in my Teams meeting, I think there's a lot of people that don't know how to do that. So
Yeah.
Copilot as a personal assistant, I mean, not only in Teams, but across the Microsoft Office suite and in combination, I mean, that's what I think will unlock a lot of benefits for just kind of the regular end users. But, that's my hope. And I still think we got to do the testing to figure out if that's the reality.
I think that's a really good point. I think after 15 years doing presentations, I might finally learn how to drive PowerPoint. That might be Copilot might finally save me in that respect. Excel as well is really interesting for that. You've got the Excel hardcore junkies that can do everything, but your typical user can barely use it. If you can say, I want you to highlight values in this table that are above 17, like bang, it does the formula. That could be, super impactful for people.
Yeah, that's a great example. How many people know conditional formatting in Excel? Right.
Yes.
And so, but just say what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Copilot, could unlock the value in all these tools.
Huge.
Yes. So they released the Excel Copilot 2 weeks ago, and that was the most exciting element for me. So, but I am not a spreadsheet, heavy spreadsheet user, but I've been using Copilot in Excel to just say, hey, break down this £40 million budget. Where is it spending? You can ask it things like that, and it will generate charts pretty. Now, whether that will enough for the heavy PowerPoint and Excel users, I've spoken to a few people in the early access programs, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sure it's going to stitch together a Word document and PowerPoint and Excel, and create multiple different documents for me." And I'm thinking, I don't think it's going to do that. Certainly not in this version. So
would you say, Simon, it's more about uplifting from like novice to acceptable as opposed to you're already a pro, like I want it to next level? Maybe?
Yeah, it feels like, to me, my impression of using it for 2 to 3 weeks, it feels like an upgraded version of Office 365 to me. The search is better. I can now use Excel much far quicker than before. The recaps are the personal recaps are really good. So, hey, give me all my conversations or just tell me what me and Tom Arbuthnot have been up to over the last week or so. And it kind of, spits out the chat and the files. Really useful. But what I find absolutely fascinating, and just to link it back to the Q1 results, there's been so much hype and so much excitement, not just at the technical level, but at the executive level, which I find fascinating, with not just with Microsoft Copilot, but all the other AI. But Copilot is definitely in executive level meetings at the moment, discussions. Everyone's going, yeah, we want access on the early access program. We want, we'll pay the $100,000. What I will find fascinating over Q2 and Q3 is how many enterprise customers actually sign up to, because it basically doubles the cost of their M365 license at the moment. So is there that amount of value in the in the product?
Yeah, I think this next sort of 6 months will be really telling, won't it? Everybody's getting in the game to test it out. Will they see value to blanket license? Will they license certain roles, certain use cases? It's funny, you talk to any individual and they're like, I could definitely save a couple of hours a month, and if you do the maths on my salary, like it's a no-brainer. But then you multiply that by 5,000, 10,000, hundreds of thousands of users, and the accounting team just see a big new number coming into the Excel sheet, and they can't see an equivalent number coming out in like revenue or profit, like the productivity, quote unquote. So while it makes sense, I think we'll definitely see enterprises having to justify who gets it and why and where that saving is.
One additional thing to note here is Copilot in Outlook is only available in the new Outlook client versus your old classic Outlook client. So that would also add up the adoption for the new Outlook client as well. Same thing, a lot of features of Copilot would also be coming in with Teams 2.1. So it would also push up the adoption on the new Teams client as well.
Yeah, and speaking of new Outlook gets a definite thumbs down for me. I mean, you can't save attachments where you want. I mean, it is just like that's, in comparison, new Teams is fantastic. So
Yeah, there's a lot of people who live and die in Outlook, and they have their plugins and their macros and this, that, and the other, and none of that ports over to new Outlook. I have heard they're bringing Copilot to Outlook Classic. I don't know in how much depth, but yeah, it's a good point, Steve. It will kind of drive. Well, Microsoft hope it will drive people to the new clients. I wonder if in 6 months we're talking about how much Copilot is in Outlook Classic because they want the usage, and that's where the people are right now.
Yes. So that, Satish and Kevin, that's an excellent point. The new Outlook is a hurdle for people, and in fact, we use it in a slightly reverse way, where the executives get very upset that they're not on the Copilot license pilot, and you say, well, you got to have this new version of Outlook, and they can't cope with it. So,
well, let's jump on to a couple more news items. Next up, Tom, we said we'd talk about new Android 9 phone certification end date. Sorry, it's not new. It's actually going to be the end of that.
It's a new date, I guess. So as a quick recap, and I'll throw to Graham, my Android SME, in a second for the detail. And all the Teams devices, the phone, certainly, some of the rooms run Android, the Teams panels run Android, Teams displays run Android. They run a certain version of Android, and the OEMs upgrade that Android working with Microsoft. So Android 9, 10, 11. Microsoft want to keep that version relatively recent from a kind of InfoSec and security and best practices point of view. So Microsoft define a date whereby they will no longer mainstream support those devices on that version, and the OEMs have to update it to stay in support. And whether or not the OEMs can update it depends on what chipset they put in the device, what relationship they have with the major version upgrades, if they want to test it, etc. Lots and lots of the Teams phones, IP phones, as in Teams phone, physical phones, are still running Android 9. And Microsoft have just extended the support date from November the 5th, 2023, obviously just passed, to March the 30th, 2024. Now, when that date comes, there's still 2 years kind of reasonable endeavors, best effort support between Microsoft and the OEM where they continue to be working. But then after that 2 year countdown is done, they will be cut off from Microsoft 365. Graham, have I done my job there? Anything I missed?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it very well. As you say, just because of the end of certification date, there's also that, as you say, 2 year grace period afterwards to either get a new app or keep it supported. We've seen in the past where, okay, you hit a date and then devices just magically sign out and no longer work. So potentially that could happen in that 2 years afterwards, where they can no longer support that device. And as you say, for the OEMs, it's a big uplift to move from, say, Android 9 to 10. It's not like switching from old Outlook to new Outlook, just moving a toggle. It's a complete rewrite of the operating system for the Android devices. So I guess the OEMs are taking a bit longer to develop and migrate them on the phones. And I guess there's lots of phones out there, lots of variations, so they all need to be tested, which is why probably Microsoft have extended that date. Because they did the same for panels a few months back. I think it was August, and then they got moved to November. Yeah. And I think all vendors got there on that sort of side of things. So yeah, it's no easy feat to update Android, like just doing it on your cell phone.
Yeah, historically, an extension has meant the OEMs need more time with Microsoft for testing, as opposed to it won't happen. But this is another call out to those people buying Teams devices to make sure they understand, working with their OEM, what Android version it ships on, what the kind of what the expected update cycle is, what chipset it's running. It gets very techie very quickly. But if you're buying, tens or hundreds or even thousands sometimes in the case of phones, you're going to want to make sure you're buying into something that has the life cycle you expect.
Superb. And I suppose Microsoft Teams now is 7 years old or more. There's probably some quite old kit out there, I imagine, that does need replacing and updating. So we are getting into those years now of the legacy. Yeah,
definitely. A lot of these phones have been around from very early from Teams Phone, so they some of them are legitimately hitting their life cycle. There's just a bit of a challenge in the industry sometimes between what a telco person thinks a device lifecycle is and what an IT person thinks a device lifecycle is. IT are used to cycling devices. We wouldn't imagine running a 5-year-old mobile phone or a 5-year-old laptop, but in the phone world, phones could sit for a decade and just do their thing and nothing ever changed and they barely got patched, and that's not the IT cloud world.
Interesting. Well, let's move over to Operator Connect. Tom, I know you keep a close eye on all the changes there. We've got more operators, more countries. What's the latest number?
Yeah, this is it was interesting. I watched this very closely to keep an eye on how Microsoft's doing in terms of new operators on and country coverage, and we've hit a funny magic number of 77 operators on the program now and 77 unique countries covered. So Microsoft, it got a little bit slow on Operator Connect for a while. There weren't many additions, but it feels like we're back into a steady flow of new countries being covered, which unlocks Teams Phone in the cloud for new customers, or certainly new countries for customers, and new operators being added. So Microsoft are kind of back on the bandwagon of trying to get there being genuine cloud-first Operator Connect coverage for as many countries and as many customers as possible.
Superb. Well, next up we said we'd go back over to Graham, actually, talk about the latest Surface Hub 3 shipping date.
So yes, this was announced end of last week. It's in the public roadmap and in your message center. So Surface Hub 3 it's not a new screen, new stand. It's just a new cartridge or compute module for devices. So that'll be shipping approximately December 5 this year. And then you can also, if you've got a Surface Hub 2S today, you'll be able to have this replacement cartridge and upgrade your existing device. So that's the official GA date for shipping. And then I think early in the new year will be when you've got your Surface 2S, you'll be able to re-image your device as a Microsoft Teams room. So moving away from that, let's call it multi-app. The hub was being able to access your, OneDrive, etc., open up browsers. You'll be able to convert that to a Microsoft Teams room on Windows, so an all-in-one touch experience that actually won't require a touch console now. So this is the first of these devices based on Windows. We've seen OEMs have got Android variants. Now Windows is joining us with the Hub 3 as the first one. And if you've got a Hub 2, then you can migrate that to a Hub 3 with that new cartridge. So that will come pre-shipped with the Windows room software on there.
Great stuff. Well, finally, last news item of today, a little bit more light-hearted, but Microsoft have integrated dalle-e for AI-generated backgrounds. So I said we'd go over to Satish. I know he's doing a little talk on Chat GPT and OpenAI kind of integration within Teams. Satish, tell us about this latest update and its use cases, I think, ultimately.
So with dalle-e, what would happen is you would be able to integrate, or you would also be having their own customized image for every different meeting. It's one of the desired features that would be added up to the Teams Premium. So you wouldn't require to have a Teams Premium license assigned to enjoy the benefit of dalle-e integrations. It's being integrated with Teams, and we are also having this integration coming in with Microsoft Azure as well. So you would also be able to use dalle-e within the Azure space as well.
Thanks, Satish. And I'm sure we've got some, others on the line today that might want to comment. But I mean, what the use case here for changing your background for every meeting, is that useful? Is there some kind of meeting experience gain here to be had?
Now everyone is. Every meeting, people are trying to change the background, having preset backgrounds provided by Microsoft. So that was one thing. And then every meeting now, you would also be able to make those customized backgrounds as well. So that's one thing, is like a use case which Microsoft is bringing up on dalle-e side.
So, for me as a user, probably like a lot of us, we're sometimes back-to-back meetings. Who's got time to change their background? And I want to create a background with a jumping elephant and dancing rainbows. I don't think I have time to do that. I'm struggling to see the use case for this.
Yeah, it depends whether you take the kind of enterprise productivity hat, which is a lot of the world we live in, or you go for end-user CSAT. Like a lot of the stuff Zoom did was not for productivity, it was for fun. Like people liked it, and I think this is another one of those, isn't it? It's like we might all be back to back, but actually users want to have a bit of a play with these tools. Does that get them excited about it? Does then Microsoft get a better CSAT on Teams? Is cool because it does avatars and it does dalle-e backgrounds and things like that.
I think if it started changing your background based on what you were saying, so all of a sudden behind Graham there would be elephants and you could just speak and that, okay. Or if you say negative,
mood or sentiment.
Yeah. If you say negative things, right? It color codes you based on if you're a positive or negative. But I think this is a use case. Well, it's a feature looking for a use case. I mean, as fun as it is, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it has the fun element. And while I was sitting here trying to rifle through my list of sarcastic responses to this one and decided I was going to discard them all, what I do see as a valid thing for this, as I think back to the last couple of years and different types of meetings with Microsoft and other folks who have come on with very creative backgrounds, I think at the very least, as we are spread out and we're connecting from all over the place, what it does do is gives you that kind of conversation starter that I've seen happen over and over again. People will get creative. I'm thinking about Randy Chapman with his various Star Wars backgrounds. There's a lot of conversation before the meeting even gets kicked off, centered around your background, where you got that, what you're doing. It brings a human connection in before you get into the productivity part of it. So as sarcastic as I want to be, I do think there is something there that, can be helpful for that, fostering the human connection in the meeting.
The icebreaker.
Yeah, the icebreaker.
I like that, Josh. And employee engagement is a big thing, right? So I'm sure we're going to be seeing more of that going forward. So I think I will hang it on Josh's peg. We'll call it employee engagement or engagement during meetings. Superb, Tom. Let's jump on to up and coming events. We've already talked about the big one, Microsoft Ignite.
Yeah, so Ignite is the big one. Obviously, that's Microsoft's kind of Super Bowl of the year of all their feature announcements and all their customer facing. So that is in person. I think we've got a couple on the panel who are lucky enough to be going in person, and it's online as well. So you can get to pretty much all the content online. Some sessions to look out for around kind of teams and modern work. So there's a Unlock Productivity with Microsoft Copilot, which is going to be one of the bigger keynotes with Jared Passaro and co. Get ready for the future of work with Microsoft Teams, which is the Nicole Hershowitz and co. kind of Teamsy type major session. Get your enterprise ready for Copilot, optimizing your team's environment, and how Copilot works. Those are my 5 to pick out if you want to kind of catch the major modern work and Copilot sessions.
Great, 5 excellent sessions there, but I'm sure there's a whole host more.
There are literally like hundreds of sessions. So depending on what area of Microsoft you're into, there'll be something there for you. For sure.
And you've got virtual showcases and all sorts at the event as well, haven't you? So
yeah, it's interesting to see how Microsoft adapts to. They're working very hard to make a hybrid event work for attendees, work for sponsors, work for kind of everybody. So there's various showcases, partner sessions, sponsor sessions. There's a lot there.
Superb. Great. Well, after that, we've got Cavell Enable, 28th of November.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Cavell always put on a really good show. So they do this event in the UK and the US, and this is kind of around Teams and UCaaS, other UCaaSs as well. It's more of an industry-focused event, mainly around UC and telco. I'll be doing a panel session there around enterprise. I think it's enterprise adoption. But if you're in London, that is 28th of November. And then following that same day, coincidentally, we have Microsoft UC User Group London, which is at Shaw's office the evening of the 28th of November. I'm sorry, I think that's a December early, the November, 28th of November. So that's going to be a busy day for us.
Superb. And shortly after that, on the 29th and 30th of November, we've got the Call and Contact Center Expo in London.
Yeah. So another good show. That's really interesting because that's a full-on call and contact center. That's every vendor. I'm doing my session I usually do there, which is how contact centers integrate with, work alongside Microsoft Teams. Every year, that session seems to be getting more and more relevant as Microsoft get more into the contact center space from a first-party perspective. And also we're up to 22 certified vendors for Microsoft Contact Center. So more and more teams in Contact Center, how do they work together? Should they work together? How do you interop? Is a hot conversation there.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Teams Fireside Chat. You've got a special guest coming on. Tell us more.
Yeah, really excited for this one. So Ilya's coming on for the December one. So we're going to do kind of an Ignite debrief. So all the Ignite news will come out in November. That gives us a few weeks to kind of for the news to settle. And then we'll dig in with Ilya on all the voice and rooms news. So looking forward to that one.
Superb. And from the 1st of December, we're going to be releasing our Microsoft Teams predictions for 2024. So don't miss out on that. Everyone on our show will be putting forward their predictions for the year ahead, all surrounding Teams and what might happen in the ecosystem and that kind of thing. So watch out for that. It's an essential watch. So, and that's it from us. If you're new to UC today, subscribe. If you're not, then please give us a like or a share. It's always appreciated. And if you're a Microsoft Teams fan, you want to be part of the conversation, you can connect with Tom, myself, and all our guest speakers on LinkedIn and X, and our social links are in the description. Thanks to Tom. Thanks to everyone, our guest speakers, for joining us, and we'll be back again next month. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.